Season 1 of Willow has ended, so it's time for me to give my entire season review of Willow. So where should I begin? Let's begin with my complaints. My complaints, I said this multiple times in nearly every review, music choices. Most of the accompanying music and background music, solid. But when essentially the music goes more than just helping to set the scenery and goes like more soundtrack. So think of things like, I'm going to bring an example from Scooby-Doo, like where oftentimes during the ghost chase sequence a pop song plays. That's what they did a few times during a chase sequence. Interesting enough. And when they brought that pop music into the story and not rather than just leaving the credits, I didn't appreciate it. I guess the reason is because it felt off to me. It didn't feel fantasy. Now that could just be me. I'm a big Star Wars fan. I like Star Trek. And let's be real, especially with Star Wars, classical music is the most common. Then you get that one real song in the bar in the cantina when you always get that. Or Yub Yub at the end of Return of the Jedi. Granted, I do like the replacement song a bit better. But the thing is, like, you always get that one real song, but it's always in a setting that fits, and it's more often than not, part of the universe. The characters can hear that music as well, rather than only us, the audience. And so maybe if the music was being heard by the characters, obviously, I might have been more, yeah, this works. I can see it fitting the universe. So that's essentially my only major complaint about the series. So you know what? I'm going to keep you in suspense for everything I actually liked about it. But first, I'm going to reshare my episode by episode reviews for Willow. Timestamps will be down below if you would like to jump ahead. But let us begin with episode 1. Hey there, it's JohnBerry555, and I just finished watching the first episode of the new DisneyPlus series Willow, the episode being called The Gale. So right off the bat, I want to compliment this show for doing this, for incorporating the time that between the original film and the new series into the story. At least a passage of time, I should say. Because both are, it makes good sense to do this. Especially since we have at least 2 returning actors from the original film. Obviously, Warrick Davis as Willow, he returns. But also the actor who played the character, I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Seroha? I want to say, basically, that, I think, if you're familiar with Willow, you know which character. In this series, she's now the queen, but anyhow, her actor, Joanne Wally, returns to play her, so the fact that they got these 2 actors to reprise their roles, it helps to, incorporate the passage of time into the show itself. You can't have Willow without Warrick Davis, obviously, but they probably still could have tried, but probably wouldn't have been the same. But by having 2 actors, I think they decided they're just going to do a time skip, which I think is a good thing, because that also means you can have a happy ending, but not necessarily a happy ever after, because not everything will be sunshine and rainbows. And this series definitely shows that, yes, the setting of the original film, like, things are much better than they used to be, now that, the evil queen, Baltimore has been defeated, but just because things are better doesn't mean things are perfect. There's still threats outside of the realm. There's a bunch of things saying that, hey, just because things are better than they were doesn't mean everything's a happy ever after, which I think is a very good message to show. But that's just a minor thing. That's the setup. What happens is, well, and there needs to be an inciting event, and that's what this episode does. It incites the adventure that we're going to be following, which I hope is going to be full of character story. But for some context, so the queen has 2 twin children, the Princess Kate and then Prince Eric. And I have a feeling Eric is named after, Bad Mulligan's friend Eric. I'm just having that feeling that they did that on purpose, which we don't know what happened to him. He's been mentioned, and it's kind of implied that he either left or died or whatnot. We don't know. And I wonder if that could somehow play into the role in the future story. I don't know, but I do find that quite interesting how they'll, each character, we've been presented with a couple of different series on that. And I think and then another character, I'm like, like, you knew Bad Morgan, didn't you? There's a reason why the Queen is so friendly with you and all that. You must have known him. I just had that feeling. The character Bowman, who presented to be a very similar archetype as Bad Morgan was in the original film. Something I picked up on, and I wonder if there could be some, like, they knew each other or something. You know, for why would the Queen be so essentially forgiving on this basically thief who, you know, has no, like, except for willing to, you know, help defend the castle when it's attacked. Like, there's not really shown too much redeeming qualities until you put him in the same archetype as Bad Morgan was in the original film. You know, it's kind of maybe a little bit self-centered, but like, after a party, the Queen brings some food down to him and talks with him. Like, there's something more going on there, and I'm interested to see how that plays out. But there's so much going on. We learned that Princess Allura has been, Danon has been basically hidden away for own protection because of a oncoming threat from outside the realm. But we do learn that the Queen and Willow disagreed on what was the best course of action to protect her, which again shows that yes, they may be friends and all that, but that doesn't mean there can't be disagreements on that. And it seems like a pretty amicable disagreement, because they do agree that, okay, they do agree on a course of action. Granted, they probably all have different ideas on what to do once the course, but hey, each of them have their own ideas. But you know, as soon as basically the events that kick off everything occur, well, the Queen sends basically a team to go on a quest to find Willow so they can go rescue Prince Eric, who is captured by the Gales, and it's implied that they went after him specifically. And there's a line where, right before they head off, where the Queen is telling her daughter, Princess Kit, that Balmodra's blood still runs through, or her spirit, something like that. I forget the exact wording, but still runs through her and then Kit and Eric. So that implies that the people who captured Eric, something with Balmodra, maybe some big evil threat out there, or all that. I don't know, but there's still like, basically, Balmodra was bad, but there's an even bigger evil out there. But yeah, very interesting to see how that develops. But also, it's kind of not a bad story course of actions. Not too dissimilar from Star Wars, where, yeah, sure, back in the original first two films, Darth Vader was a big bad. Then we met the Emperor. But they also explore character relationships, inter-character relationships. There's two characters, Princess Kate and then the character Jade, are a unofficial couple, I would say. You know, granted, they're dancing at the party, and nobody bats an eye until Princess Kit starts going off on basically the Prince Graydon, who she's betrothed to marry as a part of unifying two kingdoms together for political reasons. But what I really do like about this is, while we do have this queer couple of Jade and Kit, the conflict that's potentially driving them apart is not because people don't approve of them being together, but because, Kit, you're a princess, you have to do your royal duties. And Jade, well, looks like you have an opportunity to become a proper knight. Like that, no, basically duties is what's driving the relationship, is presenting as a threat to the relationship, not any disapproval, which is quite interesting. And of course, there's also another relationship going on, which is quite interesting, between Prince Eric and basically a maid, who he calls Dove, not knowing her actual name. But is that her name? I'm actually not quite sure. We don't learn what her name she went by in the castle, but we do learn who she really is. They revealed this very quickly. I accidentally got this spoiled because I was checking an actor's name on Wikipedia and I saw this by mistake. So this was unfortunately spoiled for me. But when they arrived, once a group who are going on the quest, which include Kit, Jade, Prince Graydon, Bowman, and also another knight who is pretty quickly killed off. That way the commander didn't have to go, but an older knight who apparently was friends with from Bad Morgan too. And one of that was the Eric that was friends with Bad Morgan. I just wonder if that was the case, because it describes, you know, closest thing he has to his son and all that for Prince Edric. So obviously there's some connection there, I think. But I don't think we'll ever get to explore that, because he's killed off by some basically a group of marauders, for lack of a better term, once they get beyond the realm. But they eventually make it to the New village where Willow is. Granted, there's only two new ones: the Willow, and then I didn't look up this character's name. I know Willow said it, but I totally forgot. But I'm pretty sure it's one of the characters that was friends with in the original film. But anyhow, they're like the only ones there at this time. So I do wonder what happened there. But essentially, we learned that Dove is actually a lower dormant. And like Willow's like, you shouldn't be here, it's dangerous, but I'm so glad to see you. But like, and she's like, what? Like, she didn't know this herself, which makes some sense. But like, they revealed that right off the bat, which I do find very interesting. Why they chose it to reveal, I think they probably figured, let's not have that be the mystery. I think they decided the better mystery would not be where is Elora, but rather what's going on and why, and she was once proselytized to, when she was born, to unlock the end of Queen Balmodra's rule. But what about this new threat that she's also the only one who can defeat? Even though Balmodra was not defeated by her, but by basically the people who helped protect her. So I do want to say it could be doing something similar to that going on with, she's instrumental, but she's not necessarily instrumental in a personal capacity. I don't know. Maybe they're going to explore giving her more agency. Because, I mean, last time she was just a baby. Not much agency a baby can have besides liking Willow. So there is that. But yeah, that kind of overall thoughts. And so we just have to wait to see what comes next in episode 2, which I'm planning on watching as soon as I finish recording this review. And we get to see what's been going on in the world of Willow since, well, the last film. But anyhow, that's where I'm going to conclude this review. Let me know in the comment section down below, what did you think of Willow the Gales? I would love to hear your thoughts down below. Hey there, it's JohnBerry555, and welcome to my review of the second episode of the new Willow series on DisneyPlus. The episode being called The High Aldwin. So this episode picks up directly where the previous episode leaves off. They have found Willow and the I forget the name of Willow's people, but their village. We do learn that they've kind of moved more underground in order to be a bit safer. But there's a lot of things going on in this episode, being pursued, hunted down, if you will. Because what we find out is the commander god, something's up with him, something not normal, something evil, if you will. I'm saying some kind of possession or influence relating to the injury he sustained in the previous episode. Something's going on there, and we're going to figure out, but he attacks one of his own men, and his other men don't notice. And I think they were spread out doing a search at the time, but yeah, something's up with him, we're going to find out. But that was the main thing I want to talk about. What I really want to talk about is the opening credits. I forgot to talk about this in my previous video, a review, but I do very much like that the opening credits are presented as a storybook. It's small and all that, it's not much, but I do appreciate it being a storybook, because Willow is a fantasy story. It makes good sense to use that storybook style opening. You're telling a story. It's a world of fantasy and myth, of magic and suspense, all that stuff. So a storybook for the opening is logical, if you will. And that's what I really like about the intro. Though I still say, shows just don't do introductory sequences like they used to. Literally, the only show I know of that I'm actively watching, or shows I should say, are the Star Trek shows. Those are the only ones I know that are actually bothering to do openings. And I think that's largely because Star Trek has always had a history of doing, well, grand openings with musical scores, classical style music, just upbeat music. That's very common in Star Trek. But lots of other shows, Star Wars, now Willow, have some kind of opening title, but that's really about it. I do kind of wish, well, I do wish I could see more of that, but I really do appreciate what Willow is doing. Sure, it's not grand flashy with a nice theme song, but it fits the world, if you will. A world of magic. A storybook is just makes sense. It's logical, if you will. It's maybe not the kind of credits that I would like, but I do like what they did. So speaking of music, I'm not a big fan of the end credits. It feels a bit too modern, if you will, especially the music. It just doesn't feel like it fits the world of Willow. That's probably my only complaint I have about the series so far. Like, serious complaint that actually takes me out of enjoying. It's the end music. Just, it doesn't feel like it fits the world of Willow or even the 1980s. If it fit that time frame, I think I would be a little more enjoying it, able to put it into my experience a bit more. But just the way they're doing it is just not working out. But that's the end credits. It's easy to like pause and just go and record my review. But I'm listening just to get a feel of the credits, to really get the whole experience as the filmmakers are trying to convey. But there's a few other things going on. We learn Willow is trying to teach Alora magic, and at the very end, spoilers, but she does accomplish with a small little seed spell getting to grow, but she doesn't realize it because she's been taken by the commander of the guard, who we know is not in his right mind. And that's, as I said earlier, probably the best way of describing it, because something's wrong with him, but I don't think he knows something is wrong with him, if you will. But yeah, so they're going to have to rescue her now. But probably he's going to be taking her to where they're going, where they're trying to go. So that does make some sense there. So they'll be able to continue the story on as well. But one thing I've definitely noticed in this, especially with the characters, because as I said earlier, the characters are what I'm hoping to get the best story out of Willow. Because that's what I kind of gleaned from the previous, or from the film. It's the characters is what I really enjoyed more than the world or the characters. And here, Stephanie, I really enjoyed what we're seeing with Willow so far. We see that he has doubts, because let's be real, his greatest accomplishment, he just used sleight of hand. It wasn't grand, mystical, or magical, or anything like that. But still, despite his self-doubts, you can tell he's respected among his community. He's literally the high alderman of his village now. He's gained respect, but he still has a lot of his self-doubt. So that is something very interesting to take note of. Despite all that he's done and how he's respecting his community, he still has lots of the same self-doubts he had way back in the original film. That's good in my opinion. That shows that there's still room for character development, character growth. You know, he definitely showed courage, but that doesn't necessarily mean he hasn't lost his doubts. That is understandable. One other thing I really did appreciate as well is they actually had Warrick Davis's daughter play Willow's daughter. I really do like that. It's always nice when an actual parent and child can play parent and child on the screen. You don't get that all the time because not every parent is an actor while the child is, and vice versa. But when that can happen, I really do like it. I'm just going to talk a little bit about MASH here. There were a couple episodes where Alan Alda's father appeared at least twice. Granted, never as Hawkeye's father, but just having the father and son acting across from each other, there's just something so nice about that. And they did that as well with Willow, bringing in father and daughter and have them play characters who happen to be father and daughter as well. It really does help make the father-daughter relationship feel real when you actually have that in the actors as well. Sure, a big part of being an actor is being able to play something that you're not. But how about playing something that you're not, but drawing from what you are to enhance what you're not? To my knowledge, Warrick Davis is not a sorcerer, but he's playing a sorcerer, and having his real-life daughter play his character's daughter, that helps in some way bring in, I know what I'm trying to say, but I don't know the words. But it just makes it feel more real, if you will. I think that might be the best way of describing it. But yeah, those are probably the main takeaways I have from this episode. Not too much about the plot as a whole, because again, I feel like we're more just getting introduced to characters. No, we learned about all the other characters previously, but now we're really need to learn about Alora and Willow, because they didn't have have much to grow from in the last episode. Willow just was at the very end in the lower. Well, we knew her, but we didn't know her. And now she's figuring out her as we're figuring out her. And that as I really like. This something I always like about when we're learning about a character as they learn about themselves. I think that's a very neat way of exploring a character. Now granted, having a character not know the truth about themselves can sometimes come off a cliche, but when you're telling a fantasy story, it makes a lot more sense. And really, stories that involve character self-discovery generally are always good, compelling, character-driven stories. So that makes me very hopeful. Let's see. Anything else I would like to go talk about before I make some of my final points? No, I think that is pretty much it. But overall, I enjoyed the second episode. And this is something I was planning on talking about in my first review, but I elected not to do it. The actor who's playing Jade is the same actor who played Enfant's Nest in Solo Star Wars Story. Aaron Kellyman. I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. And I was like, she's familiar. Why is she so familiar? Went down to Wikipedia, looked it up, and like, yep, that's why. She played Enfant's Nest in Solo Star Wars Story. She was also in Captain America and Winter Soldier too, as I forget her character's name though. But like, it's always nice when you're watching something like, oh yeah, I recognize that actor. Why do I recognize the actor? And also, the actor who's playing Prince Graydon, I found out also acted in an MCU property as well. One of Spider-Man films, I think, as Flash. If I get that correct me if I'm wrong. But like, it's always nice when you can recognize actors. Actually, that's a good video topic for another day. But talking about recognizing actors, because I have a good story about that I would love to tell someday. But this review is not the place for that, so that's a story for another time. But anyhow, thank you for watching this review. I do hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comment section down below. What did you think of the second episode of Willow? I would love to hear your thoughts down below in the comment section, and let's get the conversation going. Hey there, it's JohnBerry555, and it's time to review episode 3 of the DisneyPlus series Willow, a sequel to the original 1988 film. Episode 3 being called The Battle of the Slaughtered Lamb. So this episode picks up directly where the second episode leaves off, obviously. But we're seeing some character development, if you will, with Willow. She's definitely becoming more confident, I would say. She still hasn't realized that she can perform magic, but she definitely, there's a scenario where she's like essentially trying to delay. She acts like she can, and well, I think that does, even though I don't know if any actual magic occurred, I do think it's going to increase her confidence, which will make it more likely for her to be able to successfully perform magic in the future. We know she can do it because she did successfully at the end of the last episode get that one plant to go, so some plant magic. But the thing is, I think with her, it's going to be confidence. She needs to be confident in her ability to perform magic for it to actually, well, occur. Another thing too, we learned that Willow, he's nervous about performing his magic because he essentially wants to try to conserve his magic because essentially he sees with his premonitions and dreams of what's coming, he is afraid that if he uses his magic now, he won't have it when he needs it later. Though he does use some in this episode, but again, I think it's the same thing. He needs to regain his own confidence, and probably then those concerns he has will not be that much of a concern anymore. There's a few other things. We also get some character deaths now. Hey, it's going to happen, but I think that's also supposed to show that what's going on is serious. Granted, it's Willow's friend. I don't know the actor who's playing him, but so we have that, and that's really the only one of the heroes that dies in this episode. But and I don't think the other heroes will, but you never know. But that's always a good way, I think, of really showing that things are serious. To have a good guy die. But we also see that the captain of the guard or whatever, they have to fight him again, and it's essentially confirmed that he is being, mind control possessed. But when he's defeated, he does get his clarity back, and he essentially asks for Jay to end his suffering, which he does, which is shown to be a very heartbreaking scene. But we also see that the episode ends with two things being revealed. One, and they're right by the castle Nakmo, so it's implied they're going to take shelter. If you don't remember, that's essentially where the evil Queen Balmodra, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, was ruling from in the original film. So that's where they are. Willow recognizes the place, and he literally says, and then return, and I think he just says Nakmo, something like that. So that I do find kind of interesting, that they've managed to get back to one site that we know from the previous film, the original film. And so I do wonder, is there going to be something in there that's going to help them or what? So I have a feeling that's what we're going to figure out in episode 4. So yeah, I don't have too much major stuff to say. Again, I really wish the credits weren't so pop music, but I really do love the opening credits. So I love the opening credits, not so much the closing credits. But still, hey, that's something. But I've already addressed that in my other review, so I don't need to talk about that again. Really, I don't have really anything additional insightful to add yet, because I don't feel like I feel like the things that we're getting hints of, we've only gotten in the beginning, we haven't gotten the end, and I don't feel comfortable talking about certain plot points until we see what happens in the next episode and beyond. So I'm going to end this review kind of short, but that's alright, because we can just begin the discussion in the comment section down below. Hey there, it's JohnBurry555, and I know it's a day late, but it's time to review the 4th episode of Willow. The episode being called Whispers of Nakmo, right? Yep, oh sorry, it's The Whispers of Nakmo. Just forgot that the article at the start of the title. But anyhow, so this, as I said, the 4th episode, and this definitely feels like a midpoint. I'm not sure how many episodes are supposed to be. Is it gonna be like 8 episodes? Like I think it was like not many Mandalorian episodes have been. Kenobi was of a similar length. Or is it gonna be something more like 12 like Star Wars Andor was? I'm not quite sure. I know it's out this summer, but this definitely feels like a midpoint. It also feels like if they had decided to split this into like 2 movies, for example, this would feel like the end of a part 1. Does that make sense? So this kind of brings on something I've been feeling really for all the 3 episodes, but I haven't been able to articulate till now. And this episode is part of the reason why. The episodes never felt like they had a good ending point. Well, actually, the last episode, episode 3, did have a good ending point where they arrive, where they find they're at Nakmo. They arrive there. That did feel like kind of a good end point. But that's, especially with episodes 1 and 2, sure, it felt like a good chapter conclusion, but not necessarily a good episode endpoint. And granted, Willow is definitely it's not doing an episodic story. It's doing a story arc being told across multiple episodes. It's more like a mini-series than than something like MASH or Geroge Island, or even some other shows like Star Wars Andor, where Andor had those breaks every couple of episodes, still telling an overarching story, but you still had episodes like Announcement, which were much more standard on, but still connected with all the other stories. Willow's not telling even that, like Andor, or even The Mandalorian to a certain extent. It's telling a story that is being told across multiple episodes, and each episode is a chapter, like in a book. Really, a book is actually a good way of comparison, where each chapter has its own endpoint, but never feels like the end of the story, the end of the book. So I hope I articulated those thoughts pretty effectively. But a few other things. This episode, I think, might be my favorite episode so far. One, like in previous episodes, they had flashbacks to the original movie, but I really love how they did it. Before it was like, characters remembering events, or the events show up on screen, or even a flashback thing. But no, what they did this time, I really love. They use essentially the concept of magic, so these are being portrayed as echoes that characters are seeing while they're at knock mode. They're actually seeing this stuff rather than just remembering or all that, which is quite, I gotta say, impressive. Another neat thing too I really enjoyed is between Kit and Laura. Yeah, I gotta make sure I had the characters' names correct. Which I think this is an important scene because the hostility that Kit has displayed really towards Kit pretty much ever since episode 1 is starting to break down. And she does this by telling Laura that she did succeed in that simple plant spell, which helped give her the confidence to actually solve the issue of the episode, that being Kit's arranged marriage groom. It hasn't gone through yet, obviously. Allowed her to use her magical abilities to save him from basically some kind of magical possession that would have endangered them all. But that is showing also that Kit is warming up to Laura, that she's, because she always had hostility, but the hostility, I felt like came not out of sense of any reservation there, just didn't want this person she probably didn't like, thought, was just messing around with her brother. Like, I felt like it was that kind of thing, like, just never bothered to get to know that kind of hostility. But you can see it's breaking down, and that also gave Laura the confidence she needed. I know I said that before, but I think that's very important, because this episode reinforced a scene that I saw in the movie, that magic is not just present in the world, but you need to be confident in it in order for you to actually, perform it, which I think is pretty interesting. They also have a joke about how in the original movie the army was turned into pigs, and Willow says, "Yeah, I think we got them all," and they were eating pork or ham, not sure exactly which, and they all stopped eating. It is a hilarious joke. It's a hilarious joke, but it's also kind of a morbid joke. But it kind of fit the setting. Like, if they had told this, when they were in Willow's village or at I forget the name of the where the home is, except for Willow, I forget that. Telling that joke in those two settings would have made no sense. But here at Nakmo, it makes sense. This is in a dark environment. This episode might be actually the closest they've done to horror. Now, it's not like horror, like, jump scares and all that. This is more psychological horror, which generally I think is better horror. I'm not a big horror fan in general, but when the psychological horror, there's something about it that I can deal with it. Probably because I find it more stimulating. I find it... I also think it does good at for character development. Psychological horror elements are much better at driving character development forward than jump scares and gross out horror, things like that. So I think that's what I'm getting at that point. But yeah, we also see that so Kit's brother Eric, he is somewhere and we don't know where, but he's like the only person there, so that adds a little bit more mystery of what's going on with the Gales and the Dark Forces. Like, they captured him, but they just left him in a ruined city, so what does that mean? It's an intriguing mystery that I do hope we find out more in the next episode. But I think I got most of my thoughts pretty well covered. There's a few other things here and there, with characters being jealous and all of that. But until more of that's developed, I don't feel comfortable commenting on it yet, because all I would do is say, this is what happened in the episode, and sure, I can always do an episode summary, but I'd rather discuss the elements in the episode and what happened. And when I don't have anything to discuss besides it happened, like, that I find it humorous. That's okay. I don't mind saying I found this funny, but if I say, this is a plot point that they're leading forward, and I kind of already did, I just didn't specify which characters, because all of the characters are feeling some form of jealousy, and some, well, not all the characters, some is as simple as they're jealous of another character for their ability, they're jealous of another character because they're interested in somebody else, or jealous of another character because they actually can perform magic, or is not really performing magic. Like, there's all those different kind of things going on, and until there's more development, until I know what's going on, I don't feel comfortable in saying. And that's kind of the one problem with having a single story being told across multiple episodes, it is much harder to talk about it, especially when you expect, like, it's easier to do it and describe this book when a book of chapters for some reason. I think that's because you get a lot more character thoughts in books, and without getting that here, it makes it harder to comment it. So that's kind of one drawback of screen media that doesn't show us what characters are thinking. Certain plot elements that might go somewhere we just can't properly explore because we don't have enough information. But after that little observation, that's where I'm going to end this review. If you enjoyed my review, please be sure to give it a like, upvote, and share. Also, feel free to let me know in the comment section, what did you think of the Whispers of Noctmore? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. Hey there, it's JohnBerry555, and it's time to review the 5th episode of the new Willow series on DisneyPlus, the episode being called Wild World. So, this episode obviously picks up with a lot of the character dynamics that we left off in the previous episode. And a couple of things that I was suspecting have definitely been confirmed. One, Prince Graydon, yeah, he definitely has a crush on Aloha. Who knows how that's going to end up, who knows, but it is something interesting that should take a note. But we also, a clue in this episode is with Kit and... what's her name? Where did I leave that piece of paper where I put all the characters' names on? Okay, I found, well, there's the characters, not my handwritten list, oh well. But anyhow, so the characters I was talking about was Kit and Jade. They finally, by the end of this episode, confessed their feelings for each other. Like all the way back in episode 1, we knew they had feelings for each other, but neither one of them actually said it out loud. But come on, dancing together, literally during the point where Kit's being an arranged marriage is being discussed for Kit, and that her and Kit and Jade are dancing with each other in sight of the prince that Kit has been betrothed to form a political alliance. Come on, we knew, like, you don't dance with your best friend during an event like that. No. Yeah, we all knew. Everyone knew. But the only thing is, neither one of them had actually said it to each other, but both of them knew it. But in many ways, the way it is addressed though is definitely very much in the vein of young adult novel. You know, both of them both of them did. I believe, if I remember correctly, I know one of them did, but I think both of them both of them expressed fear that if they said that the other one was going to reject them. Like, that is such a common trope in young adult novels that makes sense in a series that, a fantasy series kind of intended for young adults would have those same themes coming right up. So at least we haven't gotten yet the mistaken love confession yet. It's gonna happen, I guarantee you. But at least it hasn't happened yet. And mistaken, like, one character has misread another character's intentions. That hasn't happened yet. But if it doesn't happen, yeah, I'll be kind of surprised. But you know what? I should ask, besides those character relationships and the romantic relationships, we also explore regular relationships. I mean, that is an important thing. And actually, to kind of address that, we have to go all the way back to this opening of the episode, which this is my least favorite opening scene. Mainly due to the fact that it just didn't feel right. I don't mind being chased by the minions of the main antagonist. I presume that's who they're going to end up being. I forget the names of what they called them. I think it began for G or something, but regardless, like that I don't mind, but it was the accompanying music. It just didn't fit. It just did not fit for me. It felt too modern. Now, granted, I like a good chase sequence and all that. I mean, I do watch plenty of Scooby-Doo. But like, even the choice of music, I don't even think would have fit a Scooby-Doo episode. So I think just overall, this is the first time where the choice of music outside the end credits has bugged me. It's just something I wish they would approach a bit differently, gone with more fantastical music rather than pop music. That's the big problem. Like, the opening credits are normally always good. Most of the other music has been spectacular, but the music that they just chose it just did not fit. It just didn't fit the vibe of everything else. Well, it does fit the vibe of the end credits, but yeah. But you know what? Overall, that is my only complaint. My only complaint is I feel like they could have chosen better chase music. So be it. I mean, it's a minor complaint, and what I thought was overall a pretty good episode. I don't think it's my favorite. I still think episode 4 is my favorite so far. That could change by the end of the series. But that's kind of the setup. And so to get away from the bad guys, they go into the Wildwood Woods. I think I said that right. And they come across the Bone Reavers. Oh, I think I got that right. So these are the basically the people who formed the army that in Willow, the film, that served Queen Balmodra. And of course, apparently we learned that they pledged their service to her because they claimed. I mean, it's also very possible that these people now, those are just, most of them are, they were brought in as children and all that because they're parents, but claim that they were been the outcasts, former slaves of Geroge or things like that. And it's possible that they're telling the truth. It's not uncommon for, especially in fantasy, for the villain to take advantage of the downtrodden's misfortune to get them to support them. I mean, you even do see that with real tyrants who try to convince the downtrodden to support them by saying, hey, I'm going to uplift you, so that way, kind of take advantage of their situation, which is something I would not put past Queen Balmodra to have, taken advantage of the downtrodden, the outcasts, the slaves, taking advantage of the situation for her own benefit and treat. Now, how well she treated them, I don't know, but it is a complicating factor that was not addressed at all in the original film, and I still am a bit like, there's some piece of the puzzle missing. What you told yourself, there's always that. But there's also the thing is, sometimes they are telling the truth. And very likely that they could be old the truth as they know it. Because, I mean, sometimes the best way to convince someone to help you is to tell them, hey, if you don't help me, you'll be slaves to the other people. That does happen a lot. I could probably think of a good historical example. Just look at World War I propaganda posters. I think enough said there. So there's always going to be, or even this Cold War propaganda. So you always have that thing, well, the characters may be telling the truth as they know it, but their truth could have been influenced by things like propaganda, what their parents have told them. It's very likely. And actually, with all that, apparently, we learned that Jade's father was actually the general who led the Bone Reavers back in the original film, that guy. So, if that's true, which is likely because the current leader of the Bone Reavers has the same tattoo on the back of her neck that Jade has. And the leader claims that she is the eldest daughter of that general, and Jade is the youngest. But that also does help them make friends with them, and they have a party, and apparently there's a food that makes it easier for people to tell the truth. That's actually one thing that it bugged me, but not bugged me. It bugged me more in the sense of not that thing exists within the universe of Willow, but the fact that the writers thought the only way to get certain character development going is to put them in a situation where they're forced to tell the truth by something they consume rather than coming to that decision for themselves. Especially with Kit and Jade. Like, I feel like that's something like, did they really need to be influenced by an outside force on that? Couldn't their friends have convinced them to be truthful and honest with each other? Which actually that does play in a little bit here. But still, like, I just kind of wish that it was done slightly differently, if you will. It just seemed kind of contrived. And speaking of contrive, they're definitely setting up using because often there is some conflict between Willow and Alola in the sense that Alola is kind of impatient to learn, and also Willow has his, he's trying to be, what's what I'm looking for, conserve his magic, and also doesn't want to rush Alola, and Alola wants her to make sure she can learn her magic successfully, but he does, with that, he does essentially admit that he sees himself as a fraud. And the thing is this is something you gotta go all the way back to the original film. It's kind of the same thing Willow struggled with back then. He doesn't see himself as a hero. He knows people sees himself as a hero, so he plays that, but he doesn't see himself as a hero. And he does say that out, and Alola hears him call himself basically a hack. And that kind of is going to create some character conflict, kind of contrived. But at the same time, a big part of Willow's character from the beginning is he doesn't see himself as the hero. Everyone around him sees himself as a hero, and he's letting them see himself as a hero, but he doesn't see himself as a hero. And it's kind of sad that that part of his character he's still not overcome. In the sense that he just doesn't see himself. Essentially, he has low self-esteem, and maybe, hopefully, this journey will actually help him gain his self-esteem and truly see that people don't truly understand why people see him as a hero. He knows why, because he defeated Balmojo, but he's like, that was luck. He dismisses his own success. Sure, maybe it was luck and he didn't do anything fancy, but he was the one who led to Balmojo's defeat. He was the one who essentially he used his sleight of hand trick, and that caused Balmojo to basically, without thinking, touch the spell that she was going to use to banish Alola, and ended up banishing her, all because he made the choice. He made a choice to take a stand, but he in a way doesn't see that because he doesn't have the right self-esteem. I kind of hope he does have the self-esteem someday for that. But a few other things just to point out. Jade's kidnapped at the end of the episode, right as Jade and Kit were confessing their feelings for each other. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Also, the brownies, one of them, only one of them, makes a return here to get them some information. Not tagging along, which makes sense. I mean, basically, I'm 20 years older. I forget which one exactly it was. But the thing is, it's like, you don't need me, you got him, referring to Prince Graydon, like, okay. So they're saying, literally, one of the comic relief characters from the last film is saying Prince Graydon is a comic relief character in this show. I really do kind of like that. It's just hilarious, so. But I think that is actually where I'm going to end this review. Also, let me know in the comment section down below, what did you think of this episode of Willow? I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Hey there, it's JohnBerry555, and today I'm going to be doing a very quick review of the latest episode of Willow, that being the episode Prisoners of Kasdan. So basically, it's a rescue mission. For some reason when I recorded my review I said it was Jade who was kidnapped. No, it was Willow and Kit. I don't know why I get that mixed up. It happens. But anyhow, so it's a rescue mission, but also lots of them still like, we get a little more hints about what happened to Mad Morgan. We still don't know. I'm going to say we don't know the truth still because, again, we just don't know because it's being portrayed that both people who were there when he was at scene are unreliable narrators. Gorman, who lies all the time, and then a character who they just met in this episode. He doesn't survive this episode, by the way. Who was also there. Basically, both of those characters thought they had betrayed each other, and apparently Mad Morgan had described this character to Willow before he went missing as, one of the dumbest knights that he's ever met. So, we're kind of given the indication that both of these are unreliable narrators about what's been going on. So we still don't know what's going on, but we do know this much. Kit finds her father, Mad Morgan's soul. So we do know that. And the episode ends with her trapped because she was basically having an argument with Lower Dan, basically about how she felt, well, basically abandoned by her father in favor of Alora. Which, there is some truth to that, though. Here's me thinking as a viewer, all Alora needs to say is, even though Willow too, that he knew that, that Madame Morgan knew that Kate could take care of herself, something like that. Would it help? I don't know, but I wish some character offer that, and maybe they will. But I read, despite all the argument, it's Alora who has the chance to save Kit in this episode. Now, that's where the episode ends in the cliffhanger. There's more of a pond hanger pit, and it's not a cliff that they're hanging off of, but very similar. Will the character survive next episode? Probably so. Though we still little more trying to figure out more what's happening with Kit's brother Eric. He tried to escape wherever he's at, but apparently he went in a circle and now there's another prisoner. But I'm skeptical this lady, girl, whatever, is actually a prisoner, because when we saw him at the start of the episode, he's essentially like, yeah, he's not trusting the whispering voice who's trying to lure him someplace. But now, I don't know. I don't trust this new character. I have a feeling he's going to try to lure Eric into someplace else. That's the impression I got from her. This is totally not an impression I was on, but I have a feeling they're trying to lure him someplace. The people who kidnapped him. Let's see. That's really about it that I really wanted to cover. There's more I could talk about, but again, I'm keeping this review kind of short and brief. So I would like to hear from you. Yeah, let's get a conversation going in the comment section down below. So what did you think of the latest episode of Willow? Let's build off of each other, let's get a conversation going. Did you think there's anything important in the episode that I failed to address? I would love to hear from you. Hey there, it's JohnBerry555, and today I'll be reviewing the 7th episode of the Willow series on DisneyPlus, the episode being Beyond the Shattered Sea. So real quick, I would like to extend a quick apology to you guys. This video is going to be audio only. I'm a little bit behind in my videos, so I just thought I'd make it super easy and just do an audio recording. Anyhow, let's get on into the video proper. So, in this episode, what our heroes doing? Well, they're crossing the Shattered Sea. There's a lot of character development going on in this one. We're clearly nearing the end of the series. Characters are coming to terms, characters are making amends, professing feelings, all that is going on. Let's see. One important thing I think I should mention in terms of what the character development in all that is that Laura says that she wishes she wasn't a Laura then, and by that I take to mean that she wishes she wasn't burdened with the prophecy, and she also reveals that she knows of Willow's vision of the future, and Willow does admit that he hoped he could change it, and it's hard to, and maybe it does change because Laura knows about it, so that means it could change, and that vision sees Laura dead as the only way to achieve peace, or something like that. So that is something quite interesting to note, and Laura admits at one point that she's afraid, but so does Kit. In fact, at the very end of the episode, when they come to basically a cliff at the end of the Shattered Sea, they're the only two that jump down the cliff. Willow, Jade, Borgin, and Prince Graydon do not jump down the cliff. Now, maybe they do off screen and they'll meet up in the next episode. Who knows? But that is something quite interesting, that they're the only two that continue forward to find Eric, Kit's brother. Granted, he's going through his own thing, and definitely who's the antagonist of the series, the Crow. Yeah, she's there, and trying to convince Eric to join her side, and by essentially starving him with thirst, seems like she might have succeeded. So it looks like there's going to be a fight between Kit and Laura against Eric. That looks like what's going to be. So that is a very interesting development. But I kind of was expecting that in some ways. Like I was actually surprised how well he held out. Let's be real. Like, oh, you haven't been tempted yet. So yeah. Another interesting development is that we learned that Prince Graydon does have some magical abilities as well. And he's able to use, and he discovers that he's able to use his flute in order to control the magic that he has, which is quite interesting. There's a lot of other stuff going on. It does show that we also see with this one creature that they meet, which I remember seeing in the teaser trailers. That's pulling the vehicle they're using to cross the shadow to see the boat type setting, and how Prince Graydon does kind of become attached to it, and basically near the end of the journey he releases it because he can tell that the creature is becoming sad, depressed, if you will. So that's quite interesting. Those are probably the main character beats I really wanted to focus on. Though we also do have Willow and his insecurities and doubt. That's still very much a part of Willow's character. He still does not see himself as a hero. Even though he admits that he's trying to take steps to be the hero, help the actual hero succeed, he still does not see himself as the hero. No, he just wants his life with his friends and family. That's really what he wants. The embodiment of, if you will, the reluctant hero. So that's one kind of interesting piece that's still going on. But I very much like how Willow's character continues from his characterization in the original film. But rather than it has changed some, he's now no longer trying to avoid the adventures that puts him in the place of a hero or supporting other heroes, but rather he still doesn't see himself that way, even though he does basically answer the call to action when it comes. He still doesn't see himself that way because of his own self-doubt. I'm very sorry, but we do see that a little bit. But we also see the parts of him that where he doesn't have his doubts. We see that in him, and in some ways he needs to see that in himself. Everyone else really sees him for the hero that he is, and he forgets he is a hero at times, but sometimes you can tell it's still down there. He just needs to recognize it. But that's where I'm going to conclude this review. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, please be sure to comment down below. What did you think of this episode of Willow? Let's get the discussion going. For myself, I overall did enjoy the episode, but again, when they saw in the more modern music, that just kind of threw me out of it a little bit. I don't know why with fantasy I think more classical music and Celtic music. I don't know why those are just two genres of music I associate with fantasy. It's just my thing. So, but that's really some of the musical composition choices being my only complaint. Like I said, that's a pretty minor complaint I've had about the series so far. But that is truly my final thoughts. So let me know in the comment section down below, what did you think of this episode? Hey there, it's JohnBerry555, and it's time for me to review the season finale of Willow, that being episode 8, Children of the Womb. So it's a big climax. I did get some of my expectations wrong. Like, I did not expect Prince Eric to come out of this hunky-dory. Okay, not quite hunky-dory. He still has to deal with everything that occurred, but I expected him not to really make it out. Great on the other hand, he does make it out. I didn't know how he was going to go, but I thought it was going to be better for them all. Really, the only two characters I expected a poor ending for was Eric and Willow. Willow actually does have a good ending because while he doesn't save the day, he's there to help everyone else save the day. Same thing with what's his name? Bogan. I think I got his name right. Like, he realized that whatever armor, it's not meant for him because he's not the main character. Like, it's not his story. That was quite some meta commentary, and he gives it to Kit. And it makes sense. Kit and Alola are the main characters of the Willow series. Willow is a main character too, but they're the heart of the series. They're the ones who are carrying the story forward. Willow is serving the role as the mentor. They all fulfill character archetypes, but they all do it differently. Willow is the mentor, but unlike, say, Obi-Wan Kenobi, he doesn't die. Alola fulfills the role kind of as a chosen one, but also the hero. Same thing with Kit. They both actually occupy the same role of hero, reluctant hero at that. But both of them they're strong, but they also do face temptations but make the right choices. And you can see this from the past episodes. They're struggling with these choices that they have to make, but in the end they make the right choices. Same thing with Borgin. He, in some ways, what we figure out with him is throughout everything going, he's acting like he's the main character. But here in the last episode, he realizes he's not the main character. So that special magical armor he gives to Kit to wear because it's her journey, her story, not his. So in many ways, he kind of does fulfill the same role of Matt Morgan from the original movie, but not because he fits more the role that Jade has in this series. No, not the main character, but a major secondary character. In fact, I think I'm trying to explain this, but I'm like, I don't think I'm convincing myself of my own explanation, if that makes sense. But anyhow, they all fulfill these different roles, comparable to different character archetypes in the hero's journey, but it's not all quite the same. Like, for example, Prince Eric, like I said, he comes out and he's now on our hero's side once again after being controlled by the crone. So it looks like the crone is finally defeated thanks to Alora's magic, and she finally able to realize her full potential. So it did it did require Prince Graydon to be killed by the crow, or was he? Because it's not post credit because it's right before the credits, but I think the worm trying to recruit him to replace the crow and is using the form of Laura Danon to convince him to do so. So that's good for Alora's actor, because guess what? That means she can play a different side of her character. It's always kind of fun when an actor gets a chance to play, for lack of a better term, an evil version of themselves, or an appearance of an evil version of themselves. That's probably the main reason why they did Mirror Universe episodes more than once in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, just to give the actor the chance to play different versions of their character. Granted, that's probably going to happen in season 2 because that end sequence was entirely designed to set up a season 2. In some ways, then, I wish they had done it. I don't mind them alluding to that the worm is still out there and that there's still threats abound, but I liked how it was done with Alora and Kit speaking, how they both acknowledge that the worm is out there and is still there, and Willow chimes in, "We've only made him mad." Like, that's good. That was they often say show don't tell, but that was tell, and what they showed I didn't like as much. But I think that's because because they didn't show. Before they showed us, they just told us and gave us a little bit of a string, speculating, but also leaving an open way to go different ways. But here with the credit sequence, it's the pre-credit sequence. It does much more a setting. This is the way we have to take the story now, and that I'm a little bit frustrated with, because that's just not how I would have done it. Obviously, I'm not a good storyteller. Otherwise, I would do more than just reviews here on YouTube. But you know what I'm getting at. It's not a decision I don't want to say I don't disapprove of it, but I don't approve of it either. Let's put it that way. I'm neutral on it because maybe I just need to see the way the story actually develops. But that's probably for a potential season 2, which I don't even know if they're doing yet. But you know what? Overall, I did enjoy the series. I thought it was solid, a well-rounded series. There were some faults in it, like particularly the use of more modern music. I did not really appreciate it. It was worse in the credits than credits, so I was able to ignore it. But every now and then they did throw it into the action that I'm like, I just don't know how I feel about this. But you know what? If the music choices is my only solid complaint, I think we can take it. But yeah, that's where I'm going to end my review of episode 8. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought of this episode down below. So at the end of my review of episode 8, I did discuss a lot of my overarching thoughts of it, but I really do need a proper concluding thoughts for the Willow series. I did enjoy it. I know earlier I've addressed some of my complaints and how I also wasn't really happy with the last sequence, how I felt it took away from the last conversation that we saw between Willow, Kate, and Alora. That was a perfect ending there, in my opinion. And the next sequence, I just didn't care for it. I felt it was out of place. I understand why they did it, wanting to set up a season 2 and definitely encourage renewal if they haven't been it hasn't been renewed already. But I still kind of wish they had just left it with their conversation. That alludes to the threat coming, but it's still open ended and can be interpreted in multiple ways. And I feel like it would have done a much better job actually setting up season 2 because it would have given more creative directions. Now, if they've had the say they plan 2 seasons from the get go and already know exactly how they're telling, then it'll work probably. But I need to see season 2 for that. So what I'm saying is, even though I'm not happy with the last sequence, I'm happy with the sequence right before it, and therefore I actually want to see season 2 so I can understand their choice to do the end sequence that they did decide on for Willow. Does that make sense? It makes sense to me. I hope it makes sense to you. But I do want to again state that my favorite episode was I believe it was episode 4 when they go back to Balmodra's castle, Knockmore. That was my favorite episode without a doubt. Mainly because I think it addressed a lot of stuff and therefore I think did a good job in helping us really understand the characters. Now we get a lot more of that later on as well, but this is doing a lot to tell us how these characters fit in the universe in dealing with the repercussions of the past. These are, except for Willow, all our characters were not in the original film. They only heard the stories of what came before, the choices people made. And so Willow's there to kind of guide them through that, but here they're seeing firsthand the remnants of the past. And I kind of do like that. I also like how in that episode they did make an allusion to the army being turned into pigs while they're eating pig. And the joke they made with that. But also kind of make allusions to the original film that I forgot to talk about with episode 8. Like, I totally forgot to mention how in the moment when they're confronting the worm right before it, when they're trying, essentially springing the trap, for lack of a better term, Aloha and Kit are being tempted by the worm. But what helps, Aloha doesn't need any help actually. She knows exactly, like seems like she's playing along to the last possible moment. But Kit, the little bit needed, she needed to speak with her father, and she spoke to her father. Now it was just his voice, but like he decided to fight the worm from within, and probably part of that was knowing that he needed to be here or needed to be there in that moment for Kit to give her the encouragement she needed to step up and help Aloha defeat the worm, because they did work together. But the very last thing has to do with Mad Morgan as well. Well, Willow, right, was talking about something with a snowball, but then to make sense, it nicely did connect with the events that had occurred and this like a snowball they had unleashed with the worm. But then he says, "Did I ever tell you about the time when Mad Morgan rolled himself into a snowball?" And I just love that. That was a good ending callback to the original film, and that there was like makes a lot of good sense. Like because I think Willow the series did a very good job at calling back to the original film. It wasn't Easter eggs, not really. Sometimes some franchises, including franchises that I like, sometimes they rely too much on Easter eggs to connect things together, and the Easter eggs are just that. They're Easter eggs, but not world building Easter eggs. Does that make sense? A good Easter egg either tells you something about the world. So in many ways, sometimes what happens too often is like the cameos in the 1960s Batman television series starring Adam West. And it interrupts the story with, "Hey, you recognize this fictional character? Or you recognize this celebrity?" And then they move right on. Kind of takes you out of it. But what they did here with Willow is they called back to elements in the previous film, either for just to show how characters interact with each other, to show how these events affected. They used the past and the previous film, and the Easter eggs they chose were help to either make sometimes they ain't a joke, but also made good sense for forming character dynamics and telling us about characters, rather than saying, "Hey, look, this is something you recognize." And sometimes that unfortunately does happen. In some ways, the C-3PO cameo in Rogue One is a perfect example of that. The R2 cameo was good in my opinion. You could just pan past him. There was a Chopper cameo in in Rogue One too, and it was just, you saw him and that was it. He didn't do anything. He didn't speak like C-3PO. C-3PO kind of took you out of the story a little bit, because like it was a, hey, look at me kind of Easter egg. Or the Chopper one was, oh, Chopper, we recognize him for Rebels. And so what I really appreciate with Willow is they did more like the Chopper and even R2-D2 in there, because R2-D2 just was there. There was more like, hey, if you recognize this, congratulations. If not, so be it. But it was it was probably more like the, I'm trying to think of a good example from Star Wars, but essentially it was more of, hey, this is something from previous, but it directly relates now to what's going on, so we need to tell you about it again, so everyone can be on the same page. That's what I really like about how they handled this being a sequel series and bringing in elements from the previous film. Now, like when Kit recovers Mad Morgan's sword, it means something to her. Sure, if it was, say, a bunch of new heroes generations in the future and they found Mad Morgan's sword, like, oh, this is Mad Morgan's sword, he helped defeat Balmorra, which felt kind of cheap. But here, it means something to our characters. It's a reference to us, the audience, but it also means something to our characters, which is great. So, I've talked about what I liked, and I talked about what I didn't like, but what did you think? Your thoughts on the Willow series, I would love to hear your likes, your dislikes, your ambivalence even. I would love to hear all about it in the comment section down below. Let's get the discussion going. But in the meantime, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to give this video a like, upvote, and share. Also, feel free to subscribe and follow the channel if you haven't yet done so. And as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. May the Force be with you, always.